الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ ولدا ولم يكن له شريك في الملك ولم يكن له ولي من الذل والله أكبر كبيرا. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله الأحد الفرد الصمد الذي لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. مالك الملك يؤتي الملك من يشاء وينزع الملك ممن يشاء، يعز من يشاء ويذل من يشاء، بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير. سبح له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. له ملك السماوات والأرض يحيي ويميت وهو على كل شيء قدير. هو الأول والآخر والظاهر والباطن وهو بكل شيء عليم. وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة وجاهد في الله حق جهاده حتى أتاه اليقين. تركنا على المحجة البيضاء ليلها كنهارها لا يزيغ عنها إلا هالك. شرح الله له صدره ووضع عنه وزره وأعلمه أن مع العسر يسرا يسرا وأمره أن إذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. عباد الله، أوصيكم ونفسي المقصرة بتقوى الله، وأحذركم ونفسي من عصيانه ومخالفة أمره لزمن قوله الحق تبارك وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. وكذلك في قول الحق تبارك وتعالى: يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. My dear brothers and sisters, one cannot help it but to reflect on the tragic lifestyle that the people of Gaza are living right now after a year of a continuous and brutal, unjustified, genocidal war that has been done in front of the whole world and with the support, unfortunately, with certain leaderships and with the lack of moral conscience and with the lack of understanding to the suffering of the people of Gaza, and unfortunately now has been extended to the people of Lebanon. This tragedy has been going on for a year or 12 months or 360 days. For us, it is easy to be said that for us, it's just watching the news and keeping track of what's happening through social media. But for the people of Gaza, it's a completely different narrative. For the people of Gaza, it's a continuous pain and agony and killing and feeling the stress and the pain as they're going, counting not only the days but the hours and the seconds. That has been said. We should not be allowing to ourselves who are living outside Gaza to give up or to feel that we're getting tired. Because no matter how painful it is for us to attempt to watch social media and see the pain, the killing, the bloodshedding, the suffering, the screaming, the yelling, the shouting, the children were running frantically, and the mothers were holding babies, and the digging under the rubble to take the deceased. No matter how painful these images are, they should not be causing us to feel fatigue. Because simply, the people of Gaza cannot afford it. Simply, there's someone that has to stand up for these people. And if it's not you, who else will be doing that? If it's not the accumulated efforts of yourselves, along with others who have conscience and moral principles and values, who have joined us, or maybe we joined them, to stand with them together, to stand for the principles and moral values and the human rights principles, then we are failing the people of Gaza. And if we are failing the people of Gaza, someone will fail us when we are in a dire situation, when we feel that we're surrendered, when we feel we're stranded, and when we feel that we're left. We need someone to stand for us and stand with us and provide something. Today, allow me in a few minutes to share an image or a focused, zooming image on a suffering of one of the children in Gaza. Unfortunately, the total number of the war right now is standing at almost 187,000 individuals. Yes, some statistics are saying it's exceeding now 50,000, but when you look at the accumulated number of those who have died as a result of the bombs and the bullets, and when you look into the other causes of this death as a result of this war, the number will be superseding 187,000 individuals. Some of them, if not the majority, are women and children and elders, civilians, those who are being caught, unfortunately, helplessly, powerlessly in the war zone, being asked to move from one location to another location that is designated to be safe, and as they move to hospitals, schools, to safe areas, and as they attempt to protect themselves in tents, the bombs will be falling onto them. Huge bombs with thousands of tons of explosives will be falling onto them and causing more pain and more killing on the top of the killing and the pain that has been imposed on them. There are segments within the population of Gaza that is not paid attention to, which is the children. There are almost or over 25,000 children of Gaza who have lost a parent or two parents and have become orphans. The tragic of what is happening in Gaza is not the war itself. The tragic is what is going to happen after the war and the lifestyle that these children will be living with. It's not only the destroying of the buildings, it's not only wiping off the cities from the map, it's what's going to come after that from psychological wounds that these children will be living with. Allow me today to share with you the story of a child who was reported to us by one of the United Nations, UNICEF, representatives in one of the briefing meetings he did in February 2023, in which he was saying that he met one of the children who is 11 years old. She was with her two siblings and parents with another family member after they flee from their home. And in one day, a bomb fell into that place where they were both residing, hoping and expecting that this location would be safe, as I said, designated safe areas. And as a result of that bomb, this child lost her two siblings. And on the top of that, she lost both of her parents. and she was injured herself, and as a result of that, she lost one of her legs. And she had complications for her wounds that caused infection. Now, this child is a typical child to so many other children who have survived this war. Now, if we were to evaluate the conditions of this child and look into the circumstances and surrounding, and look of what is needed to help that child to get back on track and be able to live not a normal life, but spiritual normal life, we will find that we might be in need for a lot of resources to be deployed to somehow alleviate the suffering and the pain for this child. In our settings here in Canada, when we lose a loved one, then there are many team members who will be involved into the process of the grieving for either children or adults. We have chaplains, imams, we have faith leaders, we have social workers, we have psychotherapists, and they all work together as a team to ease the impact of the loss of a member on that child and help them to grieve normally and help them to be able to gain strength and once again to stand on their own feet. Now, in the case of this child I shared the story with, who's going to be there for that child to alleviate the suffering that she's going through? She's not going to be grieving for the loss of a sibling, but she's going to be grieving for the loss of two siblings. She did not lose only one parent, but she had lost both parents, which means chances for her to be able to find someone to give her a hug of comfort is completely gone from her life. And she herself would not be able to live a normal life as a result of losing one of her legs. She's still living in so much pain as a result of the wounds she's suffering from and the infection she has suffered for some time. Now, this image of this child, which is a typical child to so many other children, maybe out of the 25,000 so far, with that statistics been mentioned to us or brought to us, maybe half of them to a third of them have lost both parents. Maybe some of them have lost siblings or all the siblings, which is a typical scenario that is happening in Gaza. The reason why I brought this image or this story to your attention, to give you an idea of how graphic the tragedy of the children of Gaza and how much resources are in need to be deployed to help these children to catch up and be able to live a normal life. But we will not be able to do much with the support of humanitarian organizations if there is a continuous act of bomb dropping, if there is a continuous act of occupation, if there is a continuous act of assault and ignoring the rights of the indigenous people who are living in the land of Palestine. If there is a continuous violation to the United Nations rules and regulations, this suffering will be continued. If there is no acknowledgement to the Security Council resolutions, if there is no intervention and enforcement to these resolutions by the rest of the international community, then we will not be able to do much to these children. They will continue to live with these pain and griefs, and these griefs will be unresolved, and they will be living with complicated problems in their life that might not be resolved later on. And this is where every one of us is held accountable into the front of Allah Azza wa Jalla to do something. All of us, with no exception, have the ability to engage with social media. All of us have the ability to be engaged into changing the ugly narrative that is being promoted about what is happening in Gaza and Lebanon. Every one of us is able to do something, if even it's a drop with another drop, which will be creating a bucket, and a bucket will be creating a pond, and we will be able to change this narrative that is being promoted by mass media, that the terrorist that needs to be bombed, the terrorist that needs to be stopped is the child that is, in the tent, clinging to his mother or to his father when the bomb is being thrown onto them. The image of the terrorist is the person who's standing in his or her land, rooted, unwilling to move away and give up the land that they have connection with. The image of the terrorist is the image of the person who stands and shouts, La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah. The image of the terrorist is the little child who says to the leadership of the international community that no matter what you do, I will never leave my land. I will never give up my right. I will never be defeated because my power is coming from the power of the mighty Allah Azza wa Jalla. And unfortunately, the image of the victim nowadays is the image of that miskeen who flies an F-35. The image of the miskeen that rides the most sophisticated tanks on earth. The image of the miskeen is the one who deliberately ignores the rights of the indigenous people of the land in which he had occupied and took forcefully from them. The image of the miskeen is the one who continues to ignore the resolutions of the United Nations for the illegal building of settlements and continue to build more settlements and ignore the rights of the indigenous people in the land of Palestine. The image of the miskeen is the empowered settler with the weapons that have been provided to them by their own government to continue to humiliate and to kill and to suffocate more land from the Palestinians who are living peacefully in their land. This is the narrative that all of us need to work on. This is what we need to change. We need to change the perspective and the narrative to explain to the whole world that the Palestinian people are not terrorists. They're standing for their rights, they're standing on their land, and they want the whole world to understand that no matter what happened, they will never give up their right. They will never give up their land. This is an inherited right for them, endorsed by the international laws. All of us have a responsibility to say that we will be there for them. We'll stand for justice. We'll stand for the principle and moral values. We will be aligned with others around us of similar faith or other faith or no faith, because we all together live in this planet that is called the earth. And if we continue to ignore the violations that is happening, one day this small planet that we're living in will no longer be livable for us and good for us to exist on. Because if we continue to see the increase of the war, then eventually would be leading to a war that can engage all the people of the earth in it, and then no one will be saved. And none of us will be able to live a decent life. And all of us will be suffering, and our children will be suffering. So we need to be the safeguard to the moral and principles, and to protect this planet that we're living in that is called the earth. And on the top of that, to protect our principles as Canadians. Canada has been a peace broker historically, and we need to bring Canada back to that position, and we need to influence the other governments and say to them, enough is enough. Do not be blind. Do not run after your own political interests, but rather let your moral principles and values and conscience wake up and do something that will make you a person that will be recognized as a person who stood for principles and moral values, will not be recognized later on as a person who have corrupted the whole earth that we're living in. May Allah Azza wa Jalla Almighty have rahmah on the people of Palestine, whether they are in Gaza, or they are in Rafah, or whether they are in Lebanon or other parts of the world. May Allah the Mighty Azza wa Jalla have rahmah on all the humans living in this planet that He have asked us to live on, and help us to be able to live in peace and harmony. And may He be enabling us to be able to stand for justice, to stand for truth, to stand for principles, to stand for those who are undermined on earth, as He has indicated to us in the Quran. Allahumma ameen. وأقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه فيا فوز واستغفروه. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور انفسنا وسيئات اعمالنا. من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. As I'm concluding my khutbah, my brothers and sisters, I want each one of you to feel responsibility. I want each one of you to be inspired by the words of encouragement that we hear from the children of Gaza. I want all of us to be standing for them. I want all of us to feel that we are able to do something, and we will not allow the depression and the fear to creep our hearts, but rather we want to be empowered to continue to do more and more within the civil rights, within the civil boundaries, to stand up for justice and to say, these people deserve to live. These people deserve to live with integrity. And I conclude by saying, you don't need to be a Palestinian to stand for Palestinians, but you need to be a person of morals and principles to be standing for Palestinians. This is what we all need to believe in. We're standing for principle and moral values and justice, regardless of the culture, the race, and the religion. Because in Islam, we believe we stand for people who are being humiliated and treated unjustly, regardless of their faith background or their culture or their native language. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك اللهم على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم إنا عبيدك أبناء عبيدك أبناء إمائك نواصينا يا رب بيدك ماض يا رب فينا حكمك عدل فينا قضاؤك. نسألك اللهم بكل اسم هو لك سميت به نفسك أنزلته في كتابك أو علمته أحدا من خلقك أو استأثرت به في علم الغيب عندك بأن تجعل القرآن العظيم ربيع قلوبنا يا رب. اللهم اجعله جلاء لهمومنا وأحزاننا يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم ندعوك في هذا اليوم الفضيل وفي هذه الساعة المباركة ندعوك وأنت الرحمن الرحيم بأن تفرج هم وغم المكروبين في الأرض يا رب العالمين. اللهم ارحم أهلنا في فلسطين، ارحمهم في لبنان، ارحمهم في السودان، ارحمهم في الصومال، ارحمهم في ميانمار، ارحمهم في كشمير، ارحمهم في كل بقاع الأرض. ارحم البشرية جمعاء إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم نسألك بأن توفقنا لنصرة المستضعفين في الأرض يا رب العالمين. اللهم وفقنا لنصرة المستضعفين في الأرض. اللهم استخدمنا ولا تستبدل بنا. اللهم ألف بين قلوبنا ووحد صفوفنا. اللهم نسألك بأن تمن علينا بالصلاة في المسجد الأقصى آمين مطمئنين فإنك على كل شيء قدير. We pray to supplicate you, you are the mighty. We pray to help to alleviate the suffering of those who are suffering on earth. We ask you to restore justice and peace on earth. We ask you to help us to be standing for those who are being treated unjustly, Ya Rabbal Alameen. We ask you to help us to be united, to be able to stand for justice and peace, and to help us to be able to stand for those who are being treated unjustly, Ya Rabbal Alameen. And we ask you to please our eyes with praying in al-Masjid al-Aqsa in peace and tranquility فإنك على كل شيء قدير. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وأقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.